Welcome, horror fam, to HHN365, a Halloween Horror Nights podcast. My name is Mike. I'm here with my co-host, Duff.
Hey, guys.
And our producer, Nico.
Hey, howdy, hey.
Is that what you wanted, Duff?
I mean, similar energy is fine, but, you could put them down once. That's cool.
As always, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at HHN365. And you can always leave us a voicemail at 407-906-3405. On today's show, we'll be looking at the speculation of the upcoming event that goes further than just what the houses will be. But before we get to that, there is some actually news and rumors, Duff.
Yeah, actual real news. I mean, not like publicly released news, but it's news nonetheless. And that is that I think this literally happened right after we recorded our last episode too. So we missed it by, the smallest margin.
That always happens.
So this is about, by the time you hear this, about a week old. But Universal is accepting internal submissions for Halloween Horror Nights. So the opportunity to apply to audition for Horror Nights.
Yeah. I like to think if it was like really important news that we would like do like a late breaking special announcement. But we're not gonna we're not gonna do that for just
no. I mean, it's exciting. But like I think there's a good chance if you listen to this podcast, you may have already heard this because you're probably stalking the event like we do. But if you didn't, it's a thing. It's happening already. A few things about it that I think are really cool is there's no mention of specific heights or sizes or builds. It says all sizes and looks are needed. So that's a plus. That's great to finally hear. Did the community bully them into not like nitpicking?
I think they kind of always say that. Well, not always, but I know
no, they don't.
When I first applied that, like that's what it did say. Like back in 2014, that's what it said. But then in actuality, they did not need all sizes. Like they only needed a specific look.
Yeah. Going back to even just the last one they did for last year, it's very specific. Like they'll put the exact height ranges and the builds.
Yeah, that was well, that was a very limited.
But they usually do that too. Typically, they put exactly what they want. It's a lot, but it's a pretty specific look they're going for. Outside of a few characters. Yeah,
for sure. Logistically, it's easy for them to do that. They want for the most part, average sizes when building these, so they don't have to make them to your size.
Yeah,
I get it.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. But when they're accepting more body sizes, it's just a good thing. It's a good thing. I'm happy it's happening. Hopefully, it's something that's actually happening and not just being put out there.
Yeah. And there was a little bit else information of that came out from it too, right?
Oh yeah, yep. So stilt walkers, shocker, are being casted, as well as puppeteers. Shocker again.
Mm-hmm. And then there was a thing about masks.
Oh yeah, that's the big one. So it does say face coverings will be required to be worn in addition to costume masks for rehearsal and for performance dates. So they're saying as of now, even the scare actors will be wearing masks. So I think we kind of would expect that, especially at this point.
Yeah.
They could change it if they wanted to. I don't know if I'd expect that. But it's officially out there that they're planning on masks at the moment.
Yeah, I think masks like we were said a couple of weeks ago on the show. I think masks are going to be the last thing to go. Mm-hmm, it's easy, thing to be like, we're doing something definite,
but
yeah, I think, masks will be the last thing to go. But I think enforcement of masks, so that's a different story. But I think
I'm worried about that.
Yeah.
Hey, but I'll be fully vaccinated, so
yeah,
all of us will. It'll be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can't wait to hug you guys in the shower. Oh, also, if you happen to be a team member who's interested and you had not seen this info, you have until April 11th. So get on that.
Yeah. We should get an intern, and when they open it up to everyone auditions, we should send that intern to audition and report back like the procedure.
Send someone out to spy on
it would be
audition.
an unpaid position. I have to say that. If it was paid, you'd be getting more than all of us. So
yeah, no. This is a completely unpaid show.
yes, but that would we should have a Johnny on the beat type of person who goes out.
Have more GoPro.
I don't have the time to do this, so we need to.
But I would enjoy seeing Nico at an audition for HHN.
If AMC stock does well enough, then I will go audition.
The only reason why I want to see it is because when they ask Nico what his favorite scary movie is, he'd be like, The Godfather.
Jurassic Park would be the good answer there.
The Godfather.
It is scary. You know, the thing about when they pull up to the toll booth, you know exactly what's going to happen.
The deer head in the bed.
Oh, okay. Well, that was our news, and rumor-wise, nothing really new.
Yeah, nothing new. All right, let's get right into the main segment. So Duff, what are we looking at? What do we want to discuss today?
Well, last week we looked at the major speculation, which is the speculation map. You know, the houses, the scare zones, the big stuff, the fun stuff. This week I thought it would be more fun if we took a deeper dive into speculation we've heard, things of more how the event will look than what the actual content will be.
Right. Like the operation and the look of the event, right?
Yeah. Plus, one of those things is a little more guest direct, but that's not our first thing. So we'll get into that.
Sure, absolutely. Sure. Where do you want to start?
So we talked about scare zones and shows, but we talked about what they would be. I thought we should talk about what they look like operationally, because we've discussed it in a very basic sense about how they're going to make scare zones work, especially last year when we thought it was still going to happen. You know, do they have scare zones? What do they look like? I think now we're confident we're going to have them, but I think we probably still have some concerns. That's not going to be your standard scare zone, right?
Right. Yeah. Right. It's going to be interesting to see for sure. Do you, who wants to start off with what they think they're going to look like?
I guess I'll start off. So honestly, I think they're going to be pretty similar to normal. One of the reasons why, and kind of for everything that we're going to talk about, and my reasoning for it is we're to the point by every adult will have had the opportunity to get vaccinated like 4 months out before this event even happens. So I think things are going to look a lot different than they do now. But of course, certain precautions are going to be built into place beforehand. And I think some of them will still be around at that point regardless. So I think we'll see pretty close to normal, but less scare actors in the streets and more stages.
Okay. So you think that the original thing that we were hearing with it's going to be mostly still walkers and stages, you think that's going to be mostly the...
Yeah, to a lesser extent than before. Like, I don't think it's going to be... I think we were at the point where scare zones last year, we believed were going to be literally just all stages. And I don't think that's the case. But I think that's going to make up the majority of what they are.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I think I'm along the same thinking here. I think they're probably going to avoid. I think there might be a few like characters in the street, but I think for the most part they're going to definitely try to avoid like big traffic jams and things like that. And they're for the most part they're going to try to practice social distancing. Yeah.
Also going along with that though, I could see stages not being featured, or props in general not really being featured in the middle of the streets. Because that creates more of a bottleneck. So kind of just on the sides, just to help with guest flow a bit. So there's a lot less bottlenecking going on, a lot less guests being in each other's face.
Yes, I think so. I think that's going to be a big focus of this event in general is kind of guest flow.
And one thing we talked about last week was Right now, Terra Quintus is projected to be in Central Park, and you're wondering space-wise how that works. And, like they've done in the past, just kick it out a bit more towards Mel's, and you can put the stage out there. It's a much more open area, and that'll help a lot rather than having like everything within Central Park itself.
Right. And you can still have the shows, but you just kind of do it kind of like Vikings and Dead, where you have the shows in kind of the grassy areas.
Yeah, exactly. It worked out last year. Or, 2019.
2019, yeah. Yeah.
And shows?
Shows? Yeah. This is going to be the interesting one because as of right now, what they on the speculation map, there was nothing in the Fear Factor Live theater, right? And they just expecting the Lagoon show. Yes,
that's what they have labeled, and I think we kind of even said we disagreed last week, didn't we?
We did.
Which feels kind of weird to say I disagree with them because they are very reputable and accurate, and we trust them. But we know they hold off on some things, and I guess I don't know if it's a gut feeling that we're going to get a show there, but it makes sense from things we've heard and just kind of the way things are moving in the parks in general.
Yeah, and it just honestly, when it comes down to it, it just doesn't necessarily feel like a Halloween Horror Night. I think we're just kind of holding on to it because it doesn't feel like a Halloween Horror Night event without a show in that theater. Like it's been so many years.
To be completely honest, I don't think like I want to see a show there, but it wouldn't be the biggest loss in the world for me. Like if we didn't get it because of what's going on, I'd be like, okay, if that's what gets cut, that's fine. I'll take everything else we get. So I don't even know. It's not that I want it to come, like me pushing that it will. It's just I really think it makes too much sense for them to host it.
Right.
Like I just don't see where we're at now and where we're going to be then. Why they would skip out on a show that eats so much like crowd,
Right. Which is going to be a main.
Putting them in a theater. They're out in the streets or in houses and queues.
Right.
And, that's creating more bottlenecks. That's more people flowing around the park at once, not seated in a large theater.
Right. And I believe I said it last week, but Universal has not scared away from packing a socially distanced theater. Like they are the one company that it was from the get-go is made that a point that they are going to still have shows during all of this. Yeah, so I don't see why they would shy away from it now in this.
Nico and I did Born a few weeks ago now, and they pack it in, compared to anything else you'll see right now, pretty tight. But I don't know, it felt pretty comfortable for someone who I still don't really enjoy indoor settings like that. It's about as comfortable as I've felt in like a year, in that kind of situation. So I think they can do it, especially with the other theater being outdoors. That helps a lot. I think there's still going to be distancing, of course, in the seating, but I don't know, man. I just don't see why Universal, out of all companies, with what they've shown us so far, would decide not to host their show.
No, it's definitely coming, especially with the news of what the CDC said.
What the SEC say about HCMC, Nico?
No, I'm getting my organizations mixed up here. No, but what the CDC said that if you do have the vaccine, then you can travel at low risk, but make sure you still wear your mask and social distance. So all these signs lead to that. Yes, this will be most likely. There will be a show in there.
Yeah,
and another way to eat up 1,000 people, so they're not standing in lines for these houses, since pretty much you're gonna have to get pulsed through them this year.
Right,
definitely. And even further, CDC, not only do they say you can travel safely, you could travel internationally. They basically still want you to be cautious of what you do, but they're saying you travel fully anywhere. Go ahead, have fun once you're vaccinated. So I don't see many entertainment venues saying, you know what, CDC, is trying to send all these vaccinated people our way, but we're going to really limit things regardless.
Right.
As soon as they don't get like major backlash for doing stuff like this, they're opening it up right away. And the thing is, Universe has already been doing shows in theaters. So
on that same note, do you think we finally get to see our friends across the pond make the event this year then?
Oh, I sure hope so.
I mean, it's a tough one. I would predict they will have the ability to travel. Yes. Mm-hmm. Obviously, no guarantees. Just a guess at this point.
Yeah. I know they plan their vacations like way far out in advance. Or their holidays, should I say.
Yeah. But yeah, I think
go ahead.
I think that they will be able to get themselves to a point because they definitely want to British Airways definitely wants them to be traveling again. And Virgin and all the other, big boys that fly the 747s across the pond to Orlando. They definitely want that to be open for there. So I think they will push as hard as they can.
Yeah.
Especially with Boris Johnson still leading there. I think they will open up relatively sooner, and at least we'll get the UK market in, which I know Universal would love to have their money.
Oh yeah,
this whole city needs it. Let's be honest.
You're right. The whole city does need it, but I mean, look at it right now. I mean, we're recording this over Easter weekend, and Universal has hit capacity almost
every fucking day.
Oh, it's been insane
for the past 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So we are getting back there, and the vaccine rollout is fortunately going very well in the United States. A lot better than what I thought it was going to go.
Oh yeah, no, it's been
a lot better than it started. Yeah,
for sure.
But I think our British friends will be back. At least so Expedition Theme Park can come back and see his girlfriend again. That's who I'm most concerned for.
But yeah, no, I'd say it'll happen. But this kind of ties into something else too that we didn't have written down, but I just thought about that we should have written down. How about Stay and Scream? How does that look?
Oh,
well, I think they definitely going to have it because they want to cut down on the bottlenecks of getting people into the event.
Yeah, that's less people outside the gates for sure.
Right. The gates is what they're most concerned about. So they might even have more extended Stay and Scream type of a situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which is a direction they've already been going in the first place. So
yeah, even if you don't have a ticket to the event, they might be able to start scanning tickets early and put you in some sort of holding area from the front entrance to Today Cafe starting at
that sounds like older Stay and Scream.
Yeah, something that I could potentially see. They're going to want to try to get the cluster F that is HHN rope drop. They're going to try to. They're going to need to try to get that figured out. And those are kind of some of those things where we just had no clue what they were going to do, and so I don't think. And then when the event initially canceled, we're like, okay, well, they have a year to figure this out. These are the types of things that they've been really planning. I think,
yeah.
I just had an idea for that while you were saying that, Mike. Use the Universal app. Basically, you have to reserve your area in one of the Stay and Screams. So, you make the app make sure you have a valid, HHN ticket, and then it's okay, to get in this Stay and Scream area, you must have one of the Stay and Scream tickets, through there. How you get your the virtual queue for Hagrid's or for the houses. Yeah, so all we got to do is just do that and be and once that Stay and Scream area fills up, you're okay, well, you can select one for the other ones. And if there's none available, then it's okay, unfortunately, Stay and Scream isn't available at this moment, but you can enter the park normally at that time. I think that's going to be the easiest way to do that. But they're also going to have to. I also think that we're going to see a reservation system as well for HHN, just because of how limited the event is going to be.
I don't know if I hold on. Let's save that part until we finish Stay and Scream. But I think that's another good point we could talk about, though.
Yeah.
Mike's point about the gates being an absolute disaster, I think, is the main reason why you have to see Stay and Scream, right? Any year you go, any night you go, the worst situation as far as being in contact with other people is getting into that park. If you wait till HHN start, in that first hour, it's or if you're waiting before it opens, oh man, you're just you're packed in. Exactly. And the thing, I don't see how it's operationally feasible to try to squeeze those people in socially distanced, because there's not enough room. They'd be taking up the entirety of City Walk at that point. It's insane. So they have to try to alleviate that as much as they can. And obviously Stay and Scream is going to be, it has to be a major aspect. I don't know what else they could do.
Yeah.
But do you think they're going to lax enforcement on social distancing?
Yes, I think they will lax. Correct. I do. But I don't think they want to see the mass sardined crowd at the gates,
Yeah, we're not going to see an encouraged filling in all available space probably for the next couple of years, but I think there will be a definite lax, enforcement or lack of announcement saying, "Hey, keep your social distance there."
But then I think that also
we're gonna have a weird culture war, though.
It's gonna be weird.
Yeah, it's gonna be strange.
It's gonna be very strange.
But I think that point also bodes well for Stay and Scream, because if you're going to be lax about social distancing, what's the problem with Stay and Scream where people are sitting in your park for an hour and a half buying alcoholic beverages?
Yeah.
I already have these locations open during the day. I've seen Finn's pretty damn busy. So what's the difference if they do it for Stay and Scream and get another hour and a half revenue of alcohol sales?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Should the alcohol sales, should that lead into our next segment that we're thinking?
Oh, well, I want to go to what Nico was saying. I think that ties in pretty well.
Sure.
A park reservation system. The thing is, I think Universal wants to run this event as close to normal as possible, where they do want to sell, the frequent fear passes and things like that. But there's only X amount of people that are going to be able to get into that park at one time. Especially as we see over current limits. I have never seen Universal in all of my years ever hit capacity. And we are currently seeing it hit capacity almost every single day these past couple weeks, like I was saying earlier.
Yeah.
So
that's a capacity that's way lower than we'll be seeing in the fall.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that is true. That is true that we'll see that. But we are still going to see a reduced capacity event for sending people into cramped little houses,
Now, here's the thing. Are we? I want to point one thing out, and that's that all, I think only one's actually fully publicly stated it, and that's the NFL. But leagues, sporting events are expecting by fall to be 100% capacity. Completely. It doesn't matter what state you're in, what city you're in, 100% capacity by fall. And that's expected by NFL, college football. I know NBA, NHL, they all expect it. I know MLS is trying to push for potentially in this, in the middle of summer, go 100% capacity. So what stops theme parks from doing that?
That's very true as well. So that's a good point.
I do think that they're going to try to get back to at least 85, 90% as quickly as possible.
And then at that point, I think, that's already above HHN's normal capacity. So
exactly.
Yeah, but for an optics reason, there's no fucking way that they go back to conga lines this year. And that's going to reduce the capacity of the event, though. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
No, I get it. It makes a lot of sense. But my argument would be, one, how much do they care? That's kind of a weaker argument because none of us can really predict how they're going to take it. That's impossible. But looking at where do I want to go with this? What was I trying to say?
Looking at it from like a profitability standpoint, like how they want to operate it.
No.
Okay.
Hold on.
I'm trying to help you.
Lost my train of thought picking up on that.
About that. I am Nico. I have to admit that I think that a reservation system would be nice, but I honestly don't think they're going to do it just because they have, from the beginning, Universal has resisted a park reservation system when all the others have,
good point.
Waited to open up until they had one. So
good point.
I think moving I don't see why they would necessarily put one in place for Halloween Horror Nights when they have held off to do it for their normal parks. Now I could see them potentially do like only a certain amount of date specific tickets for a certain event. So like they're like, okay, like this Saturday, this busy Saturday in October, and that's out of single day tickets. It's full. And then but they're still going to let if you have like a frequent Fear Pass that includes Saturdays, I think they're still going to let you show up and go to that event, even if it's out of regular day tickets. So I think they are going to do some date-specific ticketing on the single-day tickets, but I don't think they're necessarily going to do a reservation system if you have a frequent Fear Pass. I think they'll probably let you show up whenever you like, if it's included in your ticket.
That's a very good point from there. Yeah.
And if it reaches capacity, they'll turn you away at the parking lot like they do now.
Yep. Mm-hmm. That's what I would expect. But also, would you expect them to hit capacity? Because obviously we're hitting capacity now, but the parks are running at 35% capacity, maybe up to 50 without telling us, but nowhere above that, right? We're obviously going to go beyond that come September. The market is obviously picking up. There's a lot more tourists coming, but it's still not going to be a fully recovered market. We're not going to have the normal amount of tourists that are coming in September that normally would. So are we even going to hit the numbers possible to reach capacity regardless?
I don't know, man. I honestly think that this summer and leading into September and October, there's such a pent-up demand for travel that I think we're going to almost see like an insane, like some of the busiest times we've seen in a long time. So I honestly think it's going to be insanely busy come this time.
Well, I think if we hit that point, I don't see the theme parks limiting anything. They're going to go, oh, this many people are coming? Okay, we're fully open.
Limit too much. I think they're going to probably just let as basically as many people as come the summer. I think capacity. Come the summer, it's going to be things basically back to normal when it comes to these theme parks.
Yeah, and there's no sign saying that won't happen. With that, like especially with our vaccination rates there, you think Universal? I don't. Do you really think any park is going to announce that it's going to do that?
No.
Or do you think it's just going to be a gradual, like, okay, let's test the waters for this one. Let's test the waters for this one. Because DeSantis pretty much has it wide open, right?
Yeah, he has it. He has for the past 8 months.
Yeah. They could be 100% capacity if they wanted to currently. If they wanted to, they could literally be full capacity. There's no restrictions anymore, but he's lifted everything.
They don't have to be transparent with what their capacities are. The only reason I know it's still definitely lower, like maybe 50%, is because I've been to the park on a day where it hit capacity, and it's nowhere near like summer crowds at Universal.
Yeah, they're still limiting for sure.
It's definitely still limited a good amount.
They raised it up quite a bit than what
they have. Or it feels like it at least. But I mean, that again, then if they're opening fully, potentially you think even by this summer, like, why are they limiting Horror Nights?
That's true as well.
The only thing it would be is if Nico is right about the no conga lines, but and they only have like if they're going to try to social distance the queues just for optics, they only have limited amount of queues, so. Yep. That would be the reason to limit the events, but I don't. I think it would only be on like super busy days. I think. You might see them reaching capacity on the Saturdays to try to force people to come on other days, stuff like that.
And like you were saying, that the frequent fear could look different. We might not have a ticket that just gives you availability to every single event.
Yeah. I think we're going to get some sort of frequent fear, but I don't think it's going to be as expanded as it was.
And I think it's still going to be, this year is still going to be more local than it typically is. So I think, you take away frequent fear, that's an issue. If you're focusing more on locals than most years.
Yeah, it's really going to depend on the international travel. I feel like...
and even then, it's not easy, for them to necessarily, like, within a couple months, like, put that trip together. That can be a big trip. Like you said, they normally plan well in it, like, sometimes 2+ years in advance. Like, they have everything laid out. So who knows if people are actually going to be able to or be willing to just put the trip together that quick and get over here,
And I can also see the U.S. government, once they see that a good portion of their population is vaccinated, then start, selling or giving the vaccines to some of the neighbors who have some issues with vaccine production, such as the United Kingdom and France, like that. To be like, oh yeah, here you go, yeah, and then you can come to the U.S. and have a nice holiday, right? Please spend money.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the next one that you have on the list here is that you wanted to talk about the potential of expanded food and drink and merch at the event. I know during HHN Light we saw a real push at it for expanded food and drink and merch. So I guess we're thinking, is it going to translate for that moving forward?
Yeah, either translate to kind of what we saw for HHN Light, which, had the food trucks, some booths, or is it going to even expand further than that and almost become probably not current Mardi Gras level, but more like last year Mardi Gras level?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the skeleton bar was insanely popular,
and it had great options too.
Had great options. I know that the people really liked the tribute store food and drink that you can get in there. I don't necessarily see them stopping. Whether they expand out to have like almost like a food and wine festival type of vibe. That I don't know about that, but I do think they're going to basically do similar to what they did in HHN, like, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, and I think Universal in general is learning that you put out good food, people are going to buy it. Universal hasn't always been great about that within the parks, and recently, just over the past few years, really, they've started to put out almost festival level events. This year for Mardi Gras is a festival, and they're pretty damn popular. And I don't see why that doesn't translate more towards HHN, like a full HHN event. I know there's not as much room to put all those booths or anything, so it can't, really be a full festival because they still need their twisted tater tents and all the beverage tents and stuff like that. But why not HHN Light? Have the food trucks out, have skeleton bar still maybe.
Well, and I know we saw a little bit beginning of that, of having that Starcourt Mall area that we saw in 2019. So I could see them potentially doing something again in that area.
Yeah. I believe they even had that pretty much the same for 28. And they're nice. It's nice to have those additional options there. But I think, there's even another step you can take, and that's including the food trucks and skeleton bar is another like dining option. Do they do it though? I mean, I don't see why not. It's, it prints money. It's food and alcohol. People at HHN love food and alcohol, mainly alcohol.
Yeah. I think there's going to be a big push to come into the park and spend more money. I think we're going to see a big push. What it exactly looks like, I'm not sure, but I think there's going to be a big push. I mean, we saw it with HN Light out of necessity, but I think they're going to realize that they can continue that And I think that might even see that we see a little bit of a pullback of some of the alcohol restrictions here eventually.
That's exactly what I was going to get to next, is that, what really prints money, what has a massive return on investment at an event, especially like HHN, and that's alcohol, which, as you probably know, it used to be more widely available. It wasn't just the pre-mixed cocktails. They had full bars around the park. They had the Jello shot bags around the park. Those are all gone, and they give you overly sugary drinks that takes a few to get you going, and beer, and that's it. So that's it. Do they go back to not limiting it and just taking the profit from liquor sales?
I think so. I think this is the year that they do that, to try to fix their books.
Yeah. And
if they expand their food options, like we saw with Mardi Gras this year, like their the Mardi Gras pass, the food pass, basically. They could easily do something for that for HHN, and that would get people who don't normally go to HHN to come and be like, you can get this. It's only available during this time, and here you go. You can spend $50 and get yourself $75 worth of food, which it's still, Universal's profiting off of that one way or the other. But they'll just get your instant 50 there.
Yeah, my wife.
That's something I could definitely see happen, and have that be competition to what Epcot has basically during that time as well. It's like, you can come to us instead, and we have a lot more going on than just
I don't know if they bring it to that level where you could call it competition for food and wine. They couldn't have enough booths. Like, it just wouldn't, space-wise, wouldn't work to really promote themselves that way. I don't know that would reach a level to where they're saying, hey, we have a lot of great food too. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it'll be mentioned as part of marketing that they've expanded food options, but it's not going to be anything that they're leaning on.
Right.
But I could be wrong. Who knows? Maybe they'll have the HHN Food and Wine Festival. I'm kidding. They will not.
Oh. They would be the last park to do it, because I know SeaWorld basically did the same thing.
No, yes, they absolutely did.
The craft beer festival, or whatever, the food and craft beer festival.
One more thing about more food options, though, is that if you're looking to add in more alcohol options, one of the big reasons they erased it is because it can cause drunk people, terribly drunk people. More food you have, the less drunk you'll have. People actually eating and not getting as belligerently drunk, because they're putting some nourishment into their body while drinking, rather than just pounding down vodka sodas for 8 hours straight and eating tater or twisted taters, and that's it.
Yeah.
So I think it's not going to fully counteract it, but can have a positive effect on that front too.
I don't think we'll have the blood bag girls back this year, but they could return next year.
Maybe. I know a lot of people miss having that option. I don't know why. They weren't great.
No.
But
I think it was honestly just a fun nostalgia aesthetic. Like, when you saw them in the park, you're like, oh, or see them come up on your social media, be like, oh, it's HHN time again.
Yep. I'm not going to lie. I'm a sucker for it. I would buy it if they were back, for sure. Yeah.
They weren't actually good.
No,
it's just part of the event, man.
Pretty much. I'd like to see more alcoholic options pop up. Mainly because, I'm typically just going to drink a beer. If I want a cocktail, I don't always want it to be that super sugary pre-mixed drink. I'm sorry. It's some years there's some decent ones, but a lot of years they're all trash.
Yeah. All right. Well, do you want to hop on to the next one we have here? Is the possibility of expanding the amount of houses that they have in the event to help with some of the crowds. And that would be adding an 11th house. This was a rumor that for some reason gained legs a couple of months ago. It's kind of fell off the steam, I would say, especially with the release of the spec maps.
Recently, there have been people bringing it up a lot again. That's why I put it on here, because it's being discussed a lot again. I really don't know why. I think it's just because they're like, well, they had so much extra time, so why not, kind of thing. I think we can come out and pretty much say, no, we don't expect this to happen. But since it's being talked about a lot in the community, we might as well discuss, the pros and cons and possibilities of it happening.
The cons would be the cost. These houses are not cheap to build. They cost a lot of money. They also cost a lot of money to staff every night. The pros obviously would be have a place to put people, but I don't know if that's going to be as big of as concern as we thought it was going to be last year. But like, we can't have people in the streets. They can't loiter. We have to have them in queues. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's going to be as big a concern this year. And we're like, people can't just be standing around. I think, I don't think it's going to be as worrisome. I think we're going to get probably the 10 houses.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree with basically everything you said. And I did remember now why it's also being brought up, because someone dug up before, or someone mentioned again. I don't remember who, one of the insiders, that original HHN30 planning, supposedly they were thinking about maybe 12 houses. So people are like, well, now that they've had this extra time, are they actually going to do it this time? I mean, that's a no. It's not going to happen this year. The budgets are made in advance, and the budgets, it's going to be a bit hurt because of what happened last year. So it's not the time you're going to get another additional house or two, potentially even. I think there's a lot of pros in the future for it happening. And that's basically more space filler. It sucks in more guests, more people off the streets, and just more options for people, which is never, it's not a bad thing. I see a lot of people talking like, oh, no, 10 is the perfect number. It's like, how do you know? You haven't experienced an HHN with more than 10. So how do you know that's the perfect number? What if the perfect number is 18? We don't. That sounds extreme, obviously, but we don't know. My point is, we don't know yet. 12 could come and we could be like, oh, actually 12 is really nice. Right. I don't know.
I will say that 10 is pretty great. Like 10
it's a good number, especially because, it wasn't that long ago. We were still at 7, 8.
Right. And the waits for 2019, at least most of the event days that I went, were never too crazy.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it had its crazy nights, but I think if you're someone who's local and has frequent fear and goes, weeknights like we did, what was the one night we showed up at like 10:30 and did 9 houses? It was insane.
Yeah. And that's how for the most part, that's how the event felt for me for 2019. No, I mean, there were definitely times where, Stranger Things had a 90-minute wait, but that's nothing compared to what it used to be. Used to be like everything was a 90-minute wait, and the popular houses were pushing 3 hours. I mean,
we still saw Stranger Things get up to like 2.5 plus hours on occasion. It wasn't unheard of. And there were nights where it was, it felt like what you think of when you think busy horror nights, and everything. You just didn't want to go on anything because everything had a long wait.
That used to be every night,
though, exactly. Because, having 10 houses really helps spread things out. Why do people think adding a few more is not going to have the same effect? I don't get it. Why not give it a chance? It's not going to be this year, but in the future, who knows? I would like to see it. And if for whatever reason, I think people keep saying, but the quality will go down. Did it go down when they went from, 6 to 7, 7 to 8, or 8 to 9, or 9 to 10? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think the quality would go down. I don't think that's necessarily, and I just think like they will only do it if it's needed, and I think we haven't seen the crowd get to a point where it feels needed again.
I don't know. I think we have though, because we're still hitting the point where people go on. They go and they complain because they didn't get to do a lot. For people who go one night, because the thing is, for us, we get to go so much. And we would go and do a couple houses, and some nights we get to do a lot of houses. But at the end of the day, we didn't care because we were going to be back the next day or the next week or whatever it may be. If you're going one night and you hit the one of the nights where it's marginally busy and you don't have express, then you're not doing everything unless you work your ass off.
And I think the guest relations would be like, sorry, you should have bought express.
No, they're not. I mean, they're not going to, they're not going to do anything about it. the only thing they'll do about it is potentially in the future add more options.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see.
Also, with more houses comes more capacity they're allowed to shove into the park.
Yeah, that is true. I don't know those numbers. Do we know that?
No, I don't think there's ever been. Honestly, I've never even heard them on the down low. I've never heard what the exact numbers for capacity are. So I'm in the dark completely on that one.
Yeah. Have we seen in a normal event here of an HHN event reaching capacity? Even
I mean, yeah. If you go back to it was not like an every night thing, but like a lot of weekends, yeah. Like not even back in the day, going back to 25, 26, 27. There were still nights that would sell out, and you'll get to the point a lot of times. I've seen a lot less recently, but where express passes would sell out before you even walk into the park. So I mean, that's another thing to look at too, because more capacity, the more express passes you can sell. There's just a lot of potential for more revenue when you open up more houses.
I don't personally think it's coming soon, but yeah, I could see it down the road.
I wouldn't expect it, but I would like to see it when it gets here. I would like to see an 11th house. Bring it on.
I would see 13 as the perfect number, just for aesthetics.
It might be too. That sounds like a pretty solid number. I don't know how you'll ever do that in one night, but and that is the other argument. We didn't really bring that part up. Is if you are going one night, how many houses can you conceivably do? Like, at what point is it just, almost impossible to get through?
10 is hard, man.
It's already tough. Yeah, if you have express, you're fine. But even then, even if you have express and you add 2 more, are you getting them all?
You're not getting both shows in 10. Most people, when they do 10, they're skipping one of the shows.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. But I don't know. I'm curious, looking at the surveys and the data from that, how many people care about, your general public guest even cares about shows and stuff like that, or they just want to make sure they hit houses, and otherwise they don't give a shit.
I honestly don't think the general public cares about hitting every single one. A lot of the people who I talk to who are just kind of casual H&N goers, they hit their favorite ones, and then they're like, "Yeah, I had a good night. I did 4 houses."
Yeah,
okay,
that's insane to me. But yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I know, but there are people who are not obsessive over this event as we are.
Wow, really?
It's hard for me to fathom, but we're completionists.
Yeah, I'm also, in general, I am a completionist. So if I didn't care about the event, I would still go to it. I need to hit everything you have.
Right. Yeah, no.
Just who I am.
I realize I'm a completionist for sure.
It's I'm going to get my fucking value and do everything. You understand? But yeah, no. Hey, I'm just curious how your average guest would see it. Do they care about more houses? You're right. There's a segment that definitely don't, because that group of people who goes, once a year, and every year only does maybe half the houses. Definitely a thing. It exists. I see them post. There's some of them in the community who actively post. Yeah, I don't do every house. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, there's some people that are like, yeah, we went and rode Transformers and the Mummy. And we did 1 house. I'm like, what? You have an annual pass. You have an annual pass. You can go ride Transformer. But they're just like, yeah, I went down.
It was great. There was a 5-minute wait. It was perfect.
Yeah.
I wonder how many people also just potentially like the atmosphere of the event, but don't want to do the houses.
I think there's definitely a portion of the Orlando community, locals, who do that. Yeah. They want to go do a fun Halloween thing, but they mostly there's short lines for all the rides, and then they do maybe 1 or 2 haunted houses.
I know there are a few people in the community who said that they started out going to the event and only doing scare zones, and then eventually 3 years into it they would hit a house and they fell in love with houses, and that's how it got deeper. But so yeah, it's got to be a thing. Also crazy to me, because that's expensive to just go walk around a theme park and do nothing but eat and drink. But hey, if you have fun, you're having fun, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, is there anything else to discuss?
No, not really. I think most of our speculation kind of pertains to, the speculation map itself and the details of what we will see rather than these more kind of generic operational things that we talked about tonight.
Cool. Well, that was a good little look at what we think the event will look like outside of the haunted houses and kind of how COVID restrictions will look like. We'll, as always, you can see us on Twitter and Instagram at HHN365, and you can always leave us a voicemail at 407-906-3405. We'll be back next week, and we'll see you in the streets.